Hey guys, Dr. Alex here, and I love cycling, and if you're watching this video, you probably are a big cycling fanatic, or at least it is a part of your regular routine, and cycling is great for your health. It gets you fit, it's fun, it gets you coffee, and in general, almost everything about it is good. But if you cycle more than a few days a week, then you know that there is quite a bit of repetitive strain placed on the body that can have some negative consequences for when you are off the bike. And some of these changes that happen in the spine, in the hips, with different muscles getting a little bit tighter and different joints moving less, these are not helpful changes for off the bike, especially as we age. And so in my experience as a corrective chiropractor, when we see cyclists in the office, even the fittest of ones, a lot of the times the adaptive changes that are good for their cycling are not good for the rest of their life. So with this video, what I want to do is give you some flexibility and mobility drills so that you can combat some of the negative changes that happen to your body if you cycle frequently. The biggest changes that we need to combat as cyclists so that it does not affect our health negatively off the bike are the changes to the spine and to the hips. Because of us being constantly flexed forward, it puts a tremendous amount of repetitive strain on the spine. And similar to living a desk life, constantly having the hips flexed upwards towards the chest like we do on the bike places a great deal of stress on the hip joints, both of which are affected by that constantly flexed forward position. So what we're going to discuss today are some drills that you can do at home to make sure that you maintain a nice stacked up spine with ear over shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle. To make sure that we work on maintaining our extensibility or our ability to bend backwards through the spine. We want to make sure that we maintain our hip range of motion and especially our hip extension, being able to bring the hip backwards, working against those very tight hip flexors that come about from lots of time on the bike. And we're also going to discuss some stretches and mobility drills that you can do to make sure that your quadriceps and your hamstring muscles stay as loose and flexible as possible so that you're still able to go for a walk, a run, or do other sporting events. So let's get into it. So guys, what we're going to do is we're going to work progressively down from the head towards the feet in terms of combating some of the major changes that happen as a consequence of cycling a lot that might affect you structurally in the spine, might change your mobility through the hips and through the low back, and also through the muscles, the quads and the hamstrings and the leg. We're going to give you some drills to combat that. Let's start with the neck. And we're going to go through this as what I would recommend as part of a morning or a daily routine to combat some of these bike-related changes. The first drill that you can wake up to or finish off your day with is a simple cat-cow or cat-camel. This is where we're down on all fours, hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, and for the cat position, we arch everything up, pushing up through the hands, curling the chin in, holding for 1 second, and then arching everything the opposite direction. The cat-cow is a great drill for maintaining your flexibility and mobility through the neck. What we're going to do now is we're going to move to the shoulders and what we can do to maintain their mobility, because with so much cycling, being forward in that flex position creates a lot of tightness through the latissimus dorsi and the other armpit muscles, and we need to come up with some strategies that are going to help to limit or prevent that. So one drill that I love for maintaining mobility through the shoulder and making sure that we don't have a limited ability to bring the arm up overhead, using a dowel. In this case, it is a modified broomstick. You can also use a golf club, a hockey stick, anything you have laying around. And what we're going to do is we're going to be pushing with our bottom hand, and we're going to push with our bottom hand, bringing the arm up repeatedly, and this is going to help to maintain that shoulder mobility by forcing it gently back into extension, which is the opposite of what we do when we're cycling. You'll notice that I can work from a 12 o'clock position down to 11, 10, and then towards 9, and then we can do the opposite on the other side. You'll also notice that my top hand is just resting gently, and I'm pushing with the bottom hand, gently guiding it upwards, which will help us to maintain our shoulders' ability to extend and bend backwards up overhead. You should also note that from this position you can see that my core I'm keeping nice and tight, and that I'm not bending backwards through the spine, that the only thing moving is the shoulder and it's being pushed by the bottom hand. The other drill that I love for helping to maintain the shoulder and base of the neck mobility is a modified prayer stretch, which you can use a chair, a table, anything about waist height. And for this, what we do with this modified prayer stretch is we're simply going to place our hands on top of said chair or couch or table, and then we're going to come down into a tabletop position and slowly and gently balance very lightly, just bringing the back into a little bit of extension and also getting a good stretch in here through the armpits. To deepen this stretch, what you can do is you can push down a little bit into the chair. So you push down for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, relax, and then deepen the stretch. That modified prayer stretch, also a fantastic part you can add to your routine to help with the shoulders and the base of the neck. Let's go on to the next drill. We're going to talk about your mid back and your upper back. So the next two drills we're going to go over are good mobility drills for your mid back, one that can be done at the office and one that should probably be done at home. Let's go over the one at the office first. It is a modified thoracic extension mobility drill, and you can do this either sitting on your knees or sitting on a chair at the office, hands interlocked behind the neck, and using as a support, gently arching the spine, holding the neck nice and gentle. You'll feel the majority of the movement here between the shoulder blades, and that's going to help combat the rounding of the back that we get with cycling. And it's also, because we're doing the motion ourselves, going to provide a strengthening element for the spine. Next drill that's going to help some tissues and muscles lower down is the reach back, and is my favorite drill for posture and mobility. This is where we are down with our buttock sitting on our heels. If you can't get down in this position, you can put a pillow here. We're going to take one hand, put it between our legs. It's similar to a Sphinx position, except the one hand is here in the middle, other hand on the small of the back, and then this will isolate the mid-back so that nothing else in the spine moves. And then we rotate up to the ceiling, hold for a second, and down. Switch sides. This drill is called the reach back and is a great drill for building strength through the spine and for helping to maintain your posture and combat that flex forward position that we get with cycling. From this view, you can see hand here, hand on the small of the back, twisting up through the spine 1 second and back down. If this happens to bother the front of the shoulder because you have an impingement syndrome or some sort of shoulder issue, you can put your hand on the base of your neck and twisting up towards the ceiling in a similar fashion. That version's a little bit easier on the shoulder. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about the hip flexor. So let's do it. With the hip flexors, because of the constant flex position with cycling, often the iliopsoas or the hip flexor muscles get very tight and can often pull the pelvis forward into a forward pelvic tilt. Part of our daily routine, if we're spending a lot of time at the desk or on the bike, should include some hip flexor stretching. I'm going to give you two different types that you can do. First one, your simple lunge stretch that when done effectively works really, really well. The key for this one is as follows. 90 degrees through the ankle, the knee, and the hip. Same thing on the other side. And to actually isolate the hip flexors, a lot of people will tend to have too much movement through the spine. So what we want to do to isolate the hip flexor is contract the core, brace it like you're going to receive a punch, contract your glute by squeezing your butt cheeks together. It's like you're holding a coin there. Or a similar motion that might give you that cue is like you're thrusting and you clench that glute, thrust the pelvis a bit forward, and you feel a nice beautiful stretch here through the front. So core braced, glute tight, slide forward a bit like you're thrusting, and you're going to feel a good stretch through the front. So you can either hold this stretch for 30 seconds. If you're still not quite feeling it, what you can do to modify it, hand up and over, and you can hold this position, or you can make it into a dynamic stretch that I really, really like. So glute clenched, core tight, and then we'll show you from another angle. Another great modification, if you don't want to come up into the front, you don't quite feel it, or you don't want to hold it in one spot, is you'll notice if you come over to the side, you'll get different aspects of that hip flexor, a little bit through the oblique as well, and that will serve as a really fantastic mobility drill and stretch that you can do as part of your daily routine. The other hip mobility drill that I love and is a little bit better if you can get into the position is as follows. With this position, we're going to come down, we're going to sit on our heels. Again, if you can't get into this position, don't worry, you can put a pillow, but we're not going to be hanging out here for too long. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit back, hands supporting us, and we're going to thrust up. And the way we're going to thrust up is we're going to clench the glutes and then push our pelvis and our belt line to the sky. And this again is a dynamic mobility drill that's going to stretch the quads and get some movement in through the hip flexors. And this is a great mobility drill to help maintain your hip extension and activate the glutes a bit. That's what we're going to do specifically in our next drill to maintain our glute strength. We're going to go through the Glute Bridge, which is a good at-home rehab drill that you can do to make sure that you maintain your glute strength, which is important for controlling the hips, for powering on the core, and for staving away low back pain, especially in cyclists where the glutes are not nearly as activated as the other leg muscles. So for the Glute Bridge, we're going to get down on our back, knees and hips at 90 degrees. And generally I like to have a resistance band around the legs, but the feeling that you want to create with that resistance band or otherwise is that you're pushing out with the legs. And with this, we're simply going to engage the core, raise our pelvis up. The glutes should be tight. The hamstrings, if you reach down, should feel relatively loose. And then we come back down. And with this, you can either do holds or you can just do repetitions, 3 sets of 10. A modification that you can make once you find this too easy is doing single leg lifts. So legs out, one leg up, and then up with the glute, really focusing on activating the glute and not pulling up with the hamstrings. And you can hold that position as well. If you take your hands away, that'll make it even more challenging on the core and on the glutes. And so this glute bridge is a great exercise to target and to strengthen the glutes. If you're at the gym, you can put some weight across the pelvis, and that will make that drill even more challenging. I'll show you a different angle here. Perfect. And then last but not least, we're going to go in and we're going to talk about a hamstring stretching drill that's going to help maintain that hamstring mobility and your ability to bend over, touch the toes, stay flexible through the hamstrings. My favorite hamstring drill to do on a regular basis is a modified ground sweep, which we've covered before in other videos, but I think should be part of your daily routine. It's going to help combat some of the tightness and some of the stiffness that develops in the hamstrings with repetitive cycling. For this modified ground sweep, 90 degrees at the ankle, and we're going to work on sitting back, hinging through the hips, not the low back, sitting back for 1 second, and making sure we get a nice stretch in here through the hamstrings. To make this a little bit difficult, you can do a proper ground sweep where you sweep down to the ground, and that's going to not only create a hinge pattern at the hips, but also some rounding through the low back that'll produce a little bit of a stretch or a little bit of mobility through the lumbar spine. The lower that you go, the more you'll likely have to bend and hip hinge through the hip, creating more of a stretch through the hamstrings, but also more flexion in through the low back. So if that hamstring drill bothers your low back, try to make sure that it's just a hinge here through the hips, and it might reflect a problem in the spine that you should get checked out. So if you are especially starting to notice that with all the cycling and all the sitting you do at work, that you are starting to get stiff through your back, stiff through the hamstrings and the hips, or maybe starting to get a little shifted, these drills should be made part of your regular routine. You become how you move, and if you only move forward like we do on the bike and in the chair, then that is what your body's going to start to look like. So we got to start combating that with some of these daily flexibility and mobility drills. Make this part of your morning or evening routine, and especially after you get off the bike, it's going to help combat some of that repetitive strain. I hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know and I will be happy to respond. Get out on the bike, enjoy it, full send, and I hope that this just helps maintain everything off the bike. Take care, guys.